Hello and welcome to Supreme Commander Forged Alliance. This will be another video watching the Eco. This time we're going to look at VMC playing the back spot on setons. VMC, one of the better setons, air players in the history of setons, so he's definitely a good person to learn from. I like the fact that he doesn't always go for all-out Eco. Sometimes he does crazy things. We'll see how well he does here. So you can see first land, and he goes PGen, PGen. Looks like first three PGens, a couple mass extractors as well. So it's different things that people do early on. One thing he's done, first engineer is going to come up, pick up two mass extractors, but there's different variations where the initial build order is not that critical. Looks like it's just two mass extractors, and with the ACU, the other two picked up with the first engineer. Second engineer is going to come out and pick up a couple more, and you can see how he's guiding all these NGs with the factory, which saves quite a bit of time early on. And the most important thing we're seeing, he's using up all of his resources early on, because 30 seconds or 10 seconds one early on is going to be huge. 10 seconds difference in terms of how quickly you make your ASF can make the difference between winning and losing later on. So what you do early on here is critical. You can see his build order here. It's nearly perfection. It's about as good as you can make it. You can see the first four engineers, actually first five, so that's it's even stranger than what I'm expecting, but usually it's the first four engineers that come out. For VMC it's first five. He's also going to pick up this rock that's over here, put a factory on top of it. Now after, it seems, after 6 PGens, VMC goes with another land factory, and then he's going to build up a couple more. Looks like after 8 PGens he's going to get an air factory, not going after the Hydra yet. One thing we're noticing is after a factory attack move, already reclaimed nearly 1,000 power. So if he wasn't doing this reclaiming of power, he'd have only about half of what he has in storage. Also 166 to 170 mass, which is very close to what he's had in here. Coming up right after 3 minutes, between 3 and 5 minutes, is really where you're going to get the boost from the mid. We might see a bit of signs of that. You can see all this mass that's coming into his eco that really shouldn't be there. And as soon as he's getting that, you can see he's upgrading his mass extractor, so from Tech 1 to Tech 2, and he's really maximizing build capacity. So the build capacity on one of these is same as 2 engineers, but you can see here putting the ACU on 3 engineers. That's the same thing as multiplying the build capacity by 2.5, actually 3.5. And here you can see he's actually massed out on mass. Just so much was gotten to him from the mid, and he's not able to upgrade as quickly as he might like because of his power. Each one of these, actually without all these PGens, it takes 60 power to upgrade. But with this adjacency bonus, these were only taking 50. That was the reason why he was making these power generators around the mass extractor. So early on, first 4 minutes, it's completely just taking the mass that you're given, putting them into the mass extractors, and making just enough power to get by. Because he's already, during while we're talking, he's got the Hydra, and otherwise he just got 12 PGens and a Hydra. So from the structures, it's only so what is this, 12, 240 plus 100, 340, but you can see he's actually getting a lot more, and that is because he's got engineers. He's already got a total of 31 engineer that are reclaiming the trees, and the trees give you free power. That's why he's got nearly 2,000 reclaiming mass and 16,000 power, and that's really been powering his early economy. So here about minute 5 he's going to get the air factory. He's already got one. Actually making some interceptors with it, which is quite expensive, you could say. And after that initial mass boost here, it's over after 5 minutes. He was able to get, looks like, 4 Tech 2 mass extractors. This whole time he will be upgrading some others as well. Doesn't look like he's doing too much assisting. He's paused a couple not to kill his eco, but you can see the way he's holding his eco, just enough power. some scouting from a ridiculous that he's got to take care of. Very useful to scout your opponent back player. Looks like VMC hasn't done that yet. And now Tech 2. Tech 2 Ares is going to be able to get a Tech 2 engineer and get some Tech 2 power, and with Tech 2 power you can really progress. You can see VMC isn't really sticking at Tech 1, 12. He really hasn't made any more, it's just made more engineers. You can see the engineer count has already gone to 55. He's producing NGs out of a total of 5 land factories at an air factory. Now he's got a Tech 2 factory. He's just made him a single Tech 2 engineer, and immediately he's going to make Tech 2 power. So this is the transition to Tech 2 power, and without which you can't really make the more expensive air units. You can see just with the factory it's 150 power just to make combat fighters, versus it's actually more expensive to make Tech 1 air now versus Swift ones. But you can see each one of these takes 12 seconds to make. Each one of these takes 40 seconds to make, so still quite a bit more expensive Tech 2 air. See a lot of scouts all over the place for VMC. You always want to help your team out with scouts. And one thing that VMC has started doing here, you can see his power is tanking while he's upgrading, and that's because he's got this engineer assisting the ACU, and the ACU is getting the resource allocation. And what's special about this upgrade is not the fact that it just gives you 270 power when you finish it, but the fact that your commander can make this so quickly. While the commander is making it, just the Tech 1 commander is going to be using up 150 or 1500 power per second, which is quite a bit, and that's why a single engineer is going to be using 750. So you don't need as much build capacity in engineers in order to get this, because if you want to make a Tech 3 mask extractor, first of all you need a Tech 3 factory, and then you also need a Tech 3 engineer, and then you need a lot of engineers to be able to make it so quickly. But this ACU resource allocation is a really nice move. It does make your ACU unable to get shields, which makes it a little more vulnerable, so that's kind of the trade-off. You can see VMC really keeping his eco nearly perfect, and here he's turning the pause, turning this upgrade on and off. He's not 3 Tech 3 mask extractors. He's got a whole bunch of build capacity. Got much build capacity in the field. He's already at minute 9. He's reclaimed 8,000 in terms of trees, in terms of mass. And now finishing up his resource allocation. And one thing we're seeing, how this power is jumping, it doesn't just get he doesn't just stall. That's because his allies have excess power that they're feeding him. And here he's about to finish it. He's going to have a ridiculous amount of excess power, plus 3,000, and immediately he's going to recycle his Tech 2 mask extractors, turn him back into power. Meanwhile, this whole time VMC was able to get all of his mask extractors to Tech 2, and he is beginning to get the mass storage. So that's kind of the next step after getting Tech 2. You gotta get mass storage, and the easiest way to do it is to make build templates. I have 2 here. Here's the mass storage template. In order to make a build template, you select a couple units like these that were built, and then you hit Shift T, and then you're gonna get a new build template. So you can see VMC he got his second resource allocation much quicker. He's now at plus 5,000 power. So you can see it's much easier to do this than getting Tech 3 engineers. Here at mid 11, he's going to recycle his last Tech 2 power. He's also reclaiming his Tech 1s. He's not self-destructing these because these do cause damage to the mask extractors. And he's got a lot of his build capacity on the air factory, and you can see the way he's doing it. He's got a whole bunch more factories producing engineers now in a factory attack move right next to the factory. He does have the Tech 2 engineer, which is guarding the factory, and all the Tech 1 engineers are guarding the Tech 2 engineer. And you can see the first unit out of the factory is a Tech 3 engie, so he's going to start producing some Tech 3 power. Meanwhile, he was making some artillery, perhaps thinking about a drop. And you can see all the trees are gone, and total reclaimed 12,000, and quite a bit of it came from the old power generators. You can see in terms of the score, VMC is way ahead of everybody in this one, and we've seen what he's doing. It's really not that difficult. It's really just paying attention and knowing what to do. And you can see now he is going to Tech 3, at least with some of his mass extractors. He is trying to use a little too much mass at this point. That's because he's got a lot of factories. Each one of these factories taking 4, so that's 20 mass from the air factories, another 6 land factories. So what was this? 5 plus 6, 11 factories at 4 mass, 44 mass just going to construction of engineers that he's trying to do. He's already got a Tech 3 mass extractor. That's where he was using up so much of his mass. And you can see in order to go to Tech 3 mass extractor, it's 4600 mass, which is quite a bit relative to, say, a Tech 3 power generator, which is 32,000 mass. But you can see these numbers do get quite large compared to say a Tech 1 power generator, 75 mass. This is 32,000, so the scale really accelerates. Also, in terms of build capacity, VMC is now at 177, 78, and the ASF spam has started. And this is the point at which he will begin to use quite a bit of power. Each one of these Tech 1 engineers, 66 power drain plus the air factory at 800 power drain. And it is working out for him. Is protecting his team from Tech 2 drops. Looks like Red here is in quite a bit of trouble. Those are Tech 3 scouts. And then this packing of engineers continues. You can see all of these land factories this whole time. Also the number of Tech 3 mass extractors is also going up. He's working on his third one somewhere. And one thing to note, he never stops upgrading. You never want to just be happy with the eco you have. You always want to be improving it. And then whatever excess you have, that's what you make your ASF with. Actually, this position, depending on what he wants to do, if he feels confident against ridiculous, which he probably should be pretty confident that he's got a good amount of ASF, you could actually pause this air factory and then finish the Tech 3 mass extractor a little faster. But that's a dangerous thing to do against a very good ASF player, which could make you pay for this by coming in and having an early air battle. If they notice that you're putting a little too much into eco and not putting much into ASF, they'll make you pay for it. And this is the point where you will see setons players basically over drain their eco and try to do a little too much, like we see here. Another thing that we're noticing is power storage for the VMC has gone way up, and that's a good question. Where did that come from? I don't actually see any power storage that he's made. Now here it is. So he's made 9 power storage. Each one of these is 250. So after 10 you get 2,500 mass invested in power storage. And this really helps later on because you don't get those massive power fluctuations. And looking at the cost of Tech 3 Air, you can see the ASF, you need 40,000 power. So you can imagine if you want to use a single Tech 1 power generator to make ASF, that makes 20 power. So if you divide that, that gets you about 2,000. You would need 2,000 seconds to make one ASF plane with a single power generator. That's what you need the Tech 3 power generators if you want to be able to spam ASF like this. You see those Tech 3 planes versus cruisers. Both the cruiser and the Tech 3 plane get taken out. The ASF count for VMC actually quite low by his standards. You can see he's not really respecting much. He's making other units. 28 here at minute 18 in a very serious battle where it's just ASF versus ASF. At this point you might see somewhere in the 60-70 range. That would be quite a bit. That's about as much as you could probably see. You can see the Tech 3 mass extractors continue to be constructed. And the eco is really going up. The amount of NGs around the factory is now at about 180. And of course VMC, besides ASF, he is making these very expensive units. Now we're seeing some ASF there from Ridiculous as well, and a drop coming in from VMC. And this is what you really want from a backplate. You want scouting, air support, and aggression with drops, as well as making a huge eco. And one thing about looking at his power, looks like he's paused his air production somehow. All this excess power is not really wasted. It's going to the allies, helping them out with shields and perhaps experimentals and things like that. So it's also a Tech 2 radar, could be a Tech 3 radar that's going to cost quite a bit of power. Tech 1 bombers also from VMC. That's nice to see. And the engineer spam does not stop, and mass upgrades do not stop, and power shouldn't be stopping either. But somehow I'm looking at this, and so this is something that can happen sometimes. Sometimes you get a little problems with engineers, get a little too close on top of the air factory. But we are really seeing a big deficit in build capacity for VMC here. Really quite a massive deficit. I don't really have an explanation why he stopped producing. He's now got 17,000 in the bank, so much power, and that may have just been a glitch for his engineers getting into the factory and stopping the production. Looks like VMC is going to take his ACU to Tech 3, use that as a big engineer. But really, with this much excess mass, VMC could upgrade all the rest of his Tech 2 mask structures quite easily, and this is enough for an experimental now. But there's really no excuse for VMC not to have used it all. Actually, it appears that Ridiculous has overtaken him in terms of eco. That's exactly because VMC has stopped using his. He's also now going to start yet another air factory here in this position. You can see this is why you need 1,000 unit limit. VMC is already at 520. And now you can see he's restarted his ASF production, and now once again his power does get maxed out whenever he's making the planes. And you can see with enough build capacity he can make these very quickly. And whenever he's making a plane, he's actually in the negative. Whenever he is making the plane, he's in the positive. And when you're one of his allies and you start feeling that back and forth motion of the power, and actually you can see, because he does have 100,000 of storage, this is why these units, this is the big investment. Actually it'd be a great target. You can blow those all up with a couple bombs. It makes these fluctuations not as painful as they could be, because if you only had 4,000 power storage, it would be quite difficult on his eco. And I can see he's also using up quite a bit of his mass. The ASF spam is has now commenced. This is a full-on ASF spam. Minute 23 is a pretty standard minute for back players, where all the mask extractors are at Tech 3, and VMC could have probably done it a little quicker. He still has a couple of Tech 2s. His ASF count 66, actually quite low. More drops for VMC. You see VMC has been making scouts this entire game, using those, try to help out his allies. You can see quite a bit of trouble for at least for red. Looks like Cthulhu has got himself a nice battleship. Pretty ridiculous unit. And of course here, after a battle, engineers immediately to pick up that mass. Reclaim for VMC still just 13,000. Those are those original trees, and his own Tech 2 mask extractors. That's a lot of torpedo bombers from Miaba. Those should be taken off. More Tech 3 power generators for VMC. This is what you'd call massive air spam. Got 20,000 power you need for that. He's got 300 engineers now at minute 25 around his air factory, and he is pumping out Each one of these costs 400 mass as well, so that's 400 mass that he's using up in about every second. You can see his total mass production is 350, so he has enough mass. Well, actually, when he has in the bank, he can go even faster, but once he runs out, it'll be just over a second for him to make a single ASF plane. You can see Ridiculous has a pretty decent ASF force as well. But we'll see how that turns out. Looks like Cthulhu is beginning to dominate. Actually, we do see a GC that was made by VMC. We didn't really notice that. He had so much excess mass that he could easily afford something like that, but now he's beginning to run out. One thing he hasn't been making, because he's got another Tech 3 air factory, his anti-nukes. Quite surprising given that he hasn't really done too much scouting against Ridiculous, which is quite inexcusable. GCs from both sides. Pretty big advantage with Cthulhu's Navy here in this GC fight. This can be a nice win. 129 ASF. Second air factory getting ready. We do see actually a nuke from VMC, and that's really going to cost him a lot of mass. He's now very much stalling. He's also converting his build capacity from engineers to hives, so each one of these hives is much more expensive, but has a lot more build capacity. I know in the past it was each one of these at Tech 1 was 4 Tech 1 engineers. I don't really know what it's at Forge Alliance Forever. I don't know if it was nerfed or not. It might be the same. But at Tech 3, one of these was the same as 12 Tech 1 engineers. See, the GC has won the battle with the help of the Navy. More power. This is what you call anti-teleport defense. So in case a Cyber Commander decided to come into your base, you make a bunch of Tech 1 point defenses for the time that he comes in. And now getting up to 1,000 unit limit, the Tech 1 engineer production should stop. You can see at this point there are nearly 600. And here comes the air battle. This is one of the most important parts of the game. You can see the ASF count for VMC. You can also see the micro. He's trying to get behind Ridiculous. And I'll be very surprised if VMC lost this one. And looks like he was quite dominant. He did lose quite a few of his planes, but now he's going to go back, clean up the restores, save this battleship. And that's the importance of the back player, and that's why sometimes people say air wins the game, but really the reality is air allows your naval players and your mid players to capitalize on their victories, because with air you can really defend quite well if you control air. So air player only makes your side players look good, but air doesn't actually win. 67 kills for the GC. It's a total air domination by VMC. Still completely stalling his eco, but that's looks like he's abandoned that nuke. That was probably a good idea to do that. Still just producing. Now he's making Strat Bombers, so it looks like he decided not to make ASF anymore and switch to Strat Bombers. Each one of these takes 2,000 mass, so that's takes quite a bit of eco. And actually in this game VMC was very much better than the average player in this game. Had many more games in his history on setons. He's actually winning it himself with that GC, with the help of Cthulhu's Navy, of course, to get through the middle. 110 kills on the GC. Here, minute 30. There is Saul in the water. And you can see with all these torpedo bombers he allowed Motor Far to survive. There goes Snappy. And yet another GC, this time from Ridiculous. One thing that I would say about VMC that he hasn't done too well is scout directly at Ridiculous base. He made a lot of scout for his allies, but that's a lot of mercies right here, and that's one thing you can do with mercies in Forged Alliance Forever. Send them a little further than you could do in 3599. Perhaps another ASF battle. Yeah, the loss of that GC was completely because VMC did not scout the main base of Ridiculous, which doesn't make any sense. You can see if there's nukes, which would be one reason to make an anti-nuke, because here at minute 31 it could very well be that Ridiculous does have a nuke. But it seems like he doesn't really care. Might as well look. The unit cap keeps on being reached, but of course for that you might start self-destructing these factories if you really cared at this point. If the game wasn't completely lost, and you can see the engineers are going to be self-destructed slowly as well to make room for more important units. VMC waiting for somebody to teleport next to his ACUs. Got a whole bunch of torpedo launchers. Yet another air battle. Ridiculous actually doing a pretty good job. Could be because VMC did get complacent. It looks like VMC does pull it out at the end, and this game is basically over with that great ASF battle. I will stop it at this point. It's basically a formality.